I'm Maria Hart, President of Beaches Watch, and I'll be hosting the meeting tonight. Welcome to our February community meeting. Happy Valentine's Day early to everyone. Tonight we've got Scott Dudley from the Florida League of Cities. He is going to give us all the good, bad, and ugly that's happening in our legislative session. But before we bring him aboard, we're going to just give you some brief announcements. Our meetings are always videotaped, so please share this with your friends and neighbors who are not able to make the meeting tonight, or if you want to review it again, it will be on our website and on our YouTube channel, which is Beaches Watch 2012. We are always accepting new members, wanting our old members to rejoin, and we'll take any donations also. So you see our ladies at the table as you walked in. If you want to renew or join, please consider that today. $15 for individuals, $20 for family, and we have a $5 student membership. So let's recognize some of our elected officials. We're always welcome, we're always glad that they come. We have, of course, Sandy Golding, who is now Vice Mayor of the City of Jacksonville Beach. Congratulations, Sandy. We have Candace Kelly, who is Commissioner of Atlantic Beach. She's in the back. We have Carrie Chen, who is Vice Mayor of Neptune Beach. We have Kathy Posey, who is our representative for our aide for Representative Michael. We have Fernando Mesa, who is our City Council of Jacks Beach. And we have Curtis Ford, who is the Mayor of Atlantic Beach. President's Day is coming up on February 18th, so the city offices will be closed. There is a meeting date change due to the holiday. Jacksonville Beach City Council will meet on Tuesday, February 19th, and Neptune Beach will meet on the same day at 6 p.m. on the 19th. Atlantic Beach Charter Review Committee will be meeting January 20th.
Oh, sorry, that's a mistake. It's February 28th, sorry.
February 28th. This is a leap year, so February 28th, 6 p.m. in the chambers. Let's see. Now, the big news. As you know, we're celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. January 28th is our official date. So we're bringing back what we used to hold as our social. It is now our anniversary celebration. It will be held March 6th, and it's going to be at Beach Diner. Everyone knows where Beach Diner is, right? Everybody ever seen it? We've got some great prizes. I have here, just to show you an example from Scotty Cousins. Everybody has at least seen his artwork somewhere around the beaches, whether in palm trees or in bushes or whatever, and he has donated one of his wonderful pieces for our raffle prizes. So, and we have a great grand prize from One Ocean. It's a one-night stay, includes breakfast and dinner voucher. So that will be one of our grand prizes. That's actually going to be a silent auction item. We'll also present our Friend of the Beaches award then, and we'll also recognize all of our prior Friend of the Beaches who's received the award since the inception of that. So, please purchase your tickets. We're also offering sponsorships, which includes 2 tickets to the event, plus recognition on our website, and recognition at the event. Go on beacheswatch.com. If you're on our mailing list, you should have gotten a personal invitation with the link, and it's easy, just click, and you're in. Let's see, the event tickets are $25 a person, sponsorships are $100, and then the raffle tickets are going to be on sale at the event for $5 each. Okay, so just a little marketing thing for us right now. We just want to kind of find out how you guys heard about the meeting tonight. So just by a raise of hands, who knows about Nextdoor, the app? Anybody? No? One person. Did you hear about us on Nextdoor or no? No? Okay. Facebook, our Facebook page. Okay, a couple of hands. Our newsletter. Yay, you're actually reading our newsletter. Newspaper, Beaches Leader is always really good at announcing our press release, good. Our website, just happening to see what's happening on our website, that's good, good, good. And any friends or neighbors, word of mouth, and go to the meeting, yay, all right, that's pretty good. Okay, so, do you have any other announcements? Anything from good to the crowd? Okay, so we will go ahead and start with our, move on, please. With our guest speaker tonight. Our guest speaker is Scott Dudley. He is with the Florida League of Cities. He is the director of Field Advocacy. And Scott is always ready to just inform us of what's going on there. So Scott, the floor is yours.
Thank you all for having me here tonight. I am Scott Dudley. I'm from the Florida League of Cities. So I want to just talk real quick about who the League of Cities is, because I always get asked about it anyway, so just get it out of the way now. So League of Cities, we've been around for 100 years. The League has. We were created to be an advocacy group for Florida's municipalities. That advocacy role has changed a little bit over the years. I'll discuss that in just a couple of minutes, but I want you to, the other question I always get asked is how we're funded. So I'm going to do that real quick, which is that we, the League of Cities, we represent all 411 cities in the state of Florida. And some cities are real conservative cities. The makeup of their city council is pretty conservative. Some are pretty liberal, and then the makeup of their council is pretty liberal, and some are right in the middle. We have about a third of each. So we are completely nonpartisan. So because we can't afford to be partisan, because our members are not that way. City commission members. There's only one city in the state of Florida. It's also a county. You all know the answer to this better than anybody else. It's Jacksonville, so I won't even, typically it's a quiz. I won't give you that quiz. Jacksonville is the only city in the state that runs partisan elections. And we like that because a lot of the issues that cities are dealing with, they're not partisan. They're basically like, how are we going to run, how are we going to make sure the roads get paved, how are we going to make sure that the stormwater gets drained, how are we going to collect the trash, all of those kind of just real basic fundamental issues. It's ground zero with the way that the issues that we deal with affect your life. If the federal government shut down, you probably take you maybe a few days, maybe a week or so to get your Social Security or your veterans benefits. If your local government shut down, when you call 911, nobody would show up. Your street lights would go out, and a whole lot of kind of almost a zombie apocalypse type stuff going on. So crazy stuff. I mentioned about how we get funded. So we, cities do an awful lot of things that we sometimes get sued about. Police car chases, skateboard parks, you name it, there's a bunch of stuff that cities do that we get sued on. So one of the things that the League did 45 years ago was we created an insurance company for cities. So we sell insurance to municipalities. Not every city in the state buys our insurance. We compete on the open market, so we create an insurance company to do that. We have about 60-ish plus percentage of the cities that use our services. There's other folks out there that are good. We also run police and fire pensions. We run workers' comp programs. We do a whole bunch of stuff like that just to try to, that's the business side of our organization. But our primary goal is to advocate for something that we call home. And does everybody know what that term means? Raise your hand. No? Cool. So I'll talk a little bit about it. So in 1968, the citizens of the state of Florida voted to put what they call home rule in the Florida's Constitution. And what home rule did is it changed what we had before, which was something called, hey Mary, we had something that we called Dillon's rule. And Dillon's rule said that every little thing the city did, we were going to change a speed zone. The city council would make a recommendation that send them to Tallahassee if you wanted to change a land use or a development code or a building code, any of those things, it all had to go to Tallahassee. Well, when we had that, Florida was a much smaller state, and then people saw fortunately that Florida was growing and growing, and it didn't make sense to keep sending things up to Tallahassee when locally things was where it should happen anyways, because the citizens in that area know best what's best for the community. And that's how when the amendment was run, that's how we pitched it, that you're the citizen in that community, you know what's best for your community. And the citizens in the state overwhelmingly is 68, 69, something like that percent. So it even passed today's percentage standard, because 60% are we currently have. So home rule, the legislature has this really interesting way of doing things. Some constitutional amendments are what we call, they're just, you don't need any type of implementation, some of them are just self-implementing. But with the home rule constitutional amendment, the legislature came in and decided, well, we need to help cities implement this constitutional amendment. And when they did, they created a state law that says basically, yes, in a home rule, except to the extent that the state passes a law that's in conflict with the city law. And then that means that the state takes precedence. And early on, the legislature worked with the League of Cities when they were going to preempt this. We worked on issues together. We had decisions on the League of Cities. Sorry, it's not really my nature. Let's keep the nature to it too, by the way. So they used it as it's called preemption. It's where they override home rule. And they used preemption as really a surgical tool when they first started. And they would use it real carefully. And a lot of times they would use it in consultation with us. With the league, they'd say, all right, we got to deal with X, Y, Z issue. Water quality standards is a really good example of that. Water doesn't know boundaries, right? So it makes sense to have at least a uniform minimum, and I don't mean minimum like we should have a minimum standard, but at least one standard that everybody has to meet and for water quality, because water doesn't know boundaries. Cities, counties, if you want to go above that, that's cool under certain conditions, and you'll see that taking that power away from us an awful lot over the years. And so they used it real sparingly, preemptions. In the last 10 to 12 years, there's been over 110 different instances where the Florida legislature has stepped in and they've said, we, the Florida legislature, know better than you how to run your communities. And the list is, it's 110 things, so I can't go through them all. I'll give you a couple of quick examples. Vacation rentals is an issue. The League of Cities, we're completely agnostic as to whether cities have vacation rentals or don't have vacation rentals. We don't have a position. Our position is that you, in your community, know what's best for your community, and you should be deciding with going to your city commission or going to your county commission or whoever's in charge of making those decisions and having a voice in those decisions. Another issue, we were preempted, and there's a bill this year, I think it's going to die this year, about preempting the use of plastic. So the governor, when he first came in, there was a bill about preempting straw. The legislature said, you can't prohibit straws in your cities. The governor said, if you don't like them prohibiting straws, then you should run somebody against them in that city commission seat so that they can fight against that. And we said, hey, way to go, governor. And this year there's a bill about, there's also some language in statute that says, as a city, we can decide not to allow plastics at events that we're having, because it's our city and we don't want to have to clean it all up. Well, there was a bill this year to take that authority away from us. So, I mean, they're literally meddling in everything, and it's driven by the special interest. And I know you're going to say, well, Scott, aren't you a special interest? Yeah, I am. I represent cities, but I'll tell you this, I don't have a PAC. We don't do any of that. We don't do any campaign endorsements. We don't do anything like that. We are over there trying to win our lobbying efforts on the merits of the argument. We go, we present, hey, you've got this bill, we want to try to help you fix what you're trying to do, if we can. Sometimes we can't reach an accord, so we just say, well, sorry, no, we have to just say no to it. But we try to go over and be solution-oriented. We've been doing it for a long time, so we're solution-oriented. We're relationship-driven. In real estate, it's location, location, location. In politics, it's relationships, relationships, relationships. So we build strong relationships with legislators over the years. We try to just do things right. We don't get online and drop bombs on them. Oh, they're terrible. Well, we may disagree with them on a particular policy. But you know what? The next year, I'll give you an example. For years, we were preempted from, believe this or not, tobacco industry preempted us from even regulating smoking in our own city parks, right? So we couldn't say you can't smoke in city parks, because the legislature took that authority away from us. And a legislator that rarely supports home rule concept in the legislature, was our champion on that bill 2 years ago to give us back that authority. So you never know who your friend is going to be. And I urge you, when I talk about relationships, it's not just me talking. I want you to think about that. Is that the way that really, the old saying, you get more, more done with honey than with vinegar?
More flies
Well, yeah, more flies. I just didn't want to.
with honey.
Nice. So, you get more done with honey than with vinegar. So, as I talked about, we don't get online and just bomb people and, they're terrible. We say, well, we'll find something that we can work with you on in the future. So, that's the way we approach things. So I've told you a little bit about the leading cities and who we are and the way we operate. So, and it's important for you to know that I'm going to say some stuff here that's, some of you may not like what I have to say, some of you may love what I have to say, but I want you to know I'm not coming at it from a partisan basis. I will tell you that my peers in California are going through the same problem right now. It's like blue state, Illinois, blue state. They're having the same problem. Is that the corporate special interests are lining up, and there's actually like groups that get together and write model legislation for groups to take back to their state, and they run this thing. So California is having the same problem with plastics as we, in terms of outlawing, the use of plastics and vacation rentals and all those kind of things. So they're having the same problem as Florida is, with the legislature running roughshod over the views of citizens. And I want you to keep that in mind too. The legislature views a lot of these things as, well, of course cities want to do this because they want the power. But I would suggest to you that it's not about the city's power for a lot of reasons. One, that folks who run every 2 years, they're here in your community, you get to go, you have to see them in church and the ball field, all that kind of stuff. How many of you know who your state legislator is and how often you have interaction with them? I know some of you do, but right, it's not as, most of you know who your city council members are. You can see them at church or school or whatever it is that you do. And so the access to your city commissioners and to your county commissioners is just incredible, way more. I'll tell you that when you're in Tallahassee, who's been in Tallahassee and testified before? Anybody? No? Yeah, I know you have. So there was a hearing the other day. The bill, they had about 30 bills on the agenda. And what did they do? They stacked all the real controversial bills at the tail end, about 45 minutes left of the meeting, and they asked you to come up and testify, and they said, you have a minute to testify on a controversial. You drive all the way from Jacksonville, or from the Florida Keys, which was the instance I saw several people from the Keys there because they were talking about the plastics issue, and people that come up from the Keys. You have 1 minute. Well, I'm not an expert in a lot of things. In fact, my friends will tell you I'm probably an expert in nothing, but sometimes it takes you a minute to just tell why you should listen to, right? You're like, hey, I'm an expert in this for the following reason. Your minute's up, and they start doing this, or they're looking at their watch and they, hey, can you bring it in for a landing? Well, I just get rolling, I'm just getting cranked up, and they're asking me to sit down. So they don't really, less and less, they just don't want to really hear from you. And Tallahassee's is far away in place. The press covers typically the big battles between the Senate and the House, the governor, and blah, blah, all the big headlines of it. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff happening. And you all don't find out about it until after the session's over, and then you read it, if you read it at all, and it's not blaming the media, there's just so much going on. It's 60 days, it's super intense, and they can't cover everything. And a lot of our stuff flies under the radar. A couple of years ago, the legislature passed a bill on home-based businesses. It said, during the pandemic, they said, well, we ought to let people work from their home. We said, most cities allow that. There's like 99% of the cities allow that anyway, so we don't have a problem with it. But then we read the bill, and it said, basically whatever business is allowed in a commercial area is now allowed in a residential area. Well, we had a problem with that because it means that, motorcycle repair shops, or you name it, could now be in residential. They passed that, and they're starting to see some of the fallout from that. Is that you've got a guy in Northwest Florida we just learned about is setting up a jet ski rental place on his back dock. He's got like 10 jet skis, and every morning people showing up to rent the jet skis. How'd you like that in your neighborhood, right? And so there's a whole, think of the possibility. In Tallahassee, we don't allow strip clubs, but I wish that we did, because I would set up one just to have, talk to my neighbors and say, hey, we're doing this just because Slim went to the legislature. So it'd be kind of fun, right? My wife would not like it at all, but you get it. I mean, the idea that these home-based businesses this concept. And of course, it was driven by the Retail Federation and some of the other folks, and just trying to like, hey, we want to get more small business members, so there's a lot of that going on. And so what I'm going to talk about some of tonight, now I'm going to dive into some of the issues. There's a whole bunch, and I'm not going to put them all. I really kind of want to give you just the stuff that I think is going to really impact you in your daily lives as citizens here in the Beaches community. And I didn't start off, and I really wanted to. Thank you for being here. This is awesome. I love this type of democracy. It's so cool because it really does. It's exciting to me. My job is field advocacy. It means I go out and talk to groups, I talk to Rotary clubs or whatever it is. I give them the same spiel, and I do it in red areas and blue areas and neutral areas and whatever. And people's jaws drop when I talk about this. And it should make you angry at what's going on in terms of the voices that you are being stripped of by the Florida legislature. It should make you angry. I hope I make you a little bit mad tonight, by the way. I don't talk about it. So with that, let's get mad. So there's a whole host of bills. I'm going to just, like I said, I'm going to try to talk about. So some of these, and some of, again, I'll be glad to answer your question after you say, why are you guys opposed to that? Why? It's a fair question. So there's a bill this year that would require any increase in the millage rate to be done by 2/3 majority on the council. Well, the League of Cities oppose that because that's not a simple majority. That's not the way things are supposed to be done. We operate with a simple majority. We're representing democracy. It's not the tyranny of the minority. It's the majority rules. That's the way we view things. So we're opposed to that. There's 2/3. It's basically just one more effort to try to peel back the ability of local governments to even have a single revenue source that they can count on. There's a bill dealing with land use and development regulations. This is a really, really bad one. And it's, make sure I do the right so the bill is written by the development community, for the development community. And I'm not, look, I own property, I've developed it, so I'm not anti-development. But what we want is smart growth, meaningful growth that within the context of what you and your community expected that you were going to have, right, when you bought your house. But for most people, their house is the biggest investment, and you buy it thinking that you're going to have the peaceful enjoyment of it for however long you're there. So this bill basically changes all the definitions of intensity, urban service area, urban sprawl. Urban sprawl means, get this, an unplanned or uncontrolled development pattern. Well, guess what? There's no such thing as an uncontrolled or unplanned development pattern because the city council has to do something. So that means there is no such thing as urban sprawl. And so everything is a go. They're doing density. They're changing the definition of what density means. And they're changing the definition of the urban service area, where public facilities and services are in place or may be expanded to by local governments. So maybe. So it doesn't, the infrastructure doesn't even have to be there anymore. It just may be put there. So they're changing all these definitions so that basically every square inch of earth that we have is going to be built up and built out. And that's just, we don't think that's a very smart growth approach. And so we're against that, and our cities are against that. And so we are the voice for our cities. All the urban infill that's happening, there's the definition of urban infill is being changed to basically create, if you had to build, you had a 1 acre lot, you could only build on 3/4 that. Well, changing that and say, well, that last fourth, you can now put something on that urban infill. Well, again, that's something that probably as a homeowner, I'm not real happy about. Somebody building something in their backyard that's going to maybe obstruct my view on the lake that I live on. So again, kind of not cool. So just all these kind of things like that in that particular bill. So last year, the legislature, this is a different bill now, more fun news. Last year there was a bill that was passed, it was Senate Bill 170. It was supposed to be the preemption to end all preemptions. And the idea behind it was that by passing this bill that are going to make it so onerous for local governments to adopt ordinances that there wouldn't need to be any preemptions, because we were forced to do an economic impact statement. We were supposed to do all these kind of steps that we had to take before we could adopt an ordinance that was going to have any kind of a financial impact on anybody. And so we worked with the legislature. We got in a place that we said, well, you guys are asking economists to be, to step in. And I could get an economist to say, kind of, I have an economics degree, and I can tell you that it's not very much science, a lot more art to it. And so we worked with them to get a bill that was in shape that said, yeah, most cities were looking at economic impacts anyway on businesses, so it's like, yeah, we'll do that, fine, we'll do that anyway. So, and they left some things out, like comprehensive plan, land use decisions, and what happens is you have to do an economic impact statement, right, for any ordinance you pass, except for they left some things out, like urban, like land use, zoning, those type of things, that you didn't have to do an economic impact statements on. And they also said for the things that that were not exempt, like all the other ordinances that you had to do economic impact, that if somebody contested it, that the rule, that ordinance was held in abeyance until, well, now they're adding zoning and land use and all that kind of stuff back into that preemption, and all preemption bills that they passed just last year. It's not even 7 months old, and they're coming back and they're adding stuff that we negotiated out in good faith and said, if you pass this, this is a fair way to do it, and now they're coming back and they're unraveling that. And what that means is that if somebody doesn't even have to, you don't even have to show that you can possibly win the lawsuit. You can just file a lawsuit and it holds the ordinance in abeyance, and the developers or whoever get to do whatever they want to do with that piece of property while it's held in abeyance, and then they go, oh, well, we lost. Oops. And meanwhile, they move forward. So it's just another way to try to keep your voice from being heard. The other thing that they're doing, there's another bill that, or another piece of the previous bill I was talking about, that they are moving some things away from having city council meetings and county commission meetings. They just set up an administrative process. So they don't want you to be able to go to the city commission meeting or the county commission meeting and have a voice. This is all done through an administrative rubber stamp. If you check all the boxes, they have to approve that particular development. You can't even go to the city council anymore, the meeting, and raise heck about it. So it is clearly developer friendly. It's moving along, and it's got one committee left in each chamber. And we've got 4.5 weeks left of session. Plenty of time for them to continue to wreak havoc on your city's ability to use things. Sure, sorry about that. Yes, I should. Yeah, Senate Bill 1628, and I can also send this to Vice Mayor Golding, and she can get it out. So 1628 is the local government actions. That's the one that deals with the Senate Bill 170, the preemption to end all preemptions. The other bill is 1184, are the land use development regulation bill that I talked about earlier. That's the Senate bill, and it's got a House Bill 1221. The other 1628 companion is 1547. And I will send this to you because I'm trying to get through it. There's a lot that they're doing, so I'm trying to plow through it. So I talked about vacation rentals. There's another bill back this year. So the idea behind the bill this year is they want uniformity. They want uniformity in vacation rentals. Well, the only thing is this bill doesn't do that. This bill says that if you had an ordinance before 2011, your grandfathered in with your ordinance. And then if you did something after 2014, then your grandfather with that set of ordinances. And then the 2024 bill would allow you to do some things that you're already allowed to do, so it really doesn't give much. And then there's cities with no ordinances. So there's 4 different standards, so much for uniformity, right? The other thing that this bill does is it moves any type of enforcement action away from the city and gives it the DEPR up in Tallahassee. So after 11 strikes, 11 different instances where a vacation rental, somebody knocks on their door and says, hey, you're doing something wrong, 11 different times before the city can kick it to DEPR, and then DEPR is just going to get mad. Then they're going to take it. But I'll tell you that our DEPR in the state of Florida, there's all kinds of studies that show, just for example, don't quote me on these numbers because I'm just trying to give you the gist of it, is other employees of similar agencies in other states handle like 150 cases a month. In Florida, they handle like 500 cases a month. So understaffed, and we are overworked completely with DBPRs. And the other thing is, just to show you how little money they plan, they're giving this to DBPR. Well, they just pulled the bill from the committee that was going to talk about the economic impact to the state. It's the Ways and Means Committee. So they pulled it. They said, well, it's not even enough money that we're adding to the positions that DBPR would even need to consider what the impact on the state employee load is going to be. So it gives you a pretty clear sign that they're not really interested in having DBPR actually take care of very many things when things get kicked back, right? So just, kind of implied in that, just read what it does. So, then there's a bill that deals with expedited permitting that basically gives really unreasonable timelines for building permits to be, it started off at 3 days, not 3 business days. So if you turn something in on a Friday, it was supposed to be done by Monday. And if you didn't, then it was deemed to be approved. We've gotten those dates moved, we've changed some stuff around, but the time frames in the bill are still extremely, they're not fair to cities. They don't envision that maybe the economy's, as we know it does, there's ups and downs, and you may staff down or you may staff up, and depending on what's coming in. It doesn't include any of that. It just says, here's the timeline you have to follow no matter what, and it gives breaks to developers in terms of permit fees and building community and all that stuff. So, and again, I'm not anti-development. My dad was a contractor. I developed land before, so I'm just telling you what the bill does. So I'm just trying to give a fair, assessment of what the bill does. So I'll tell you about. There's a bill I just thought you might be interested in it that deals with public camping. It's trying to say that cities now have to create campgrounds for people that are homeless, and within those campgrounds they have to provide water, not food, but water, security, present on site at all times, access to behavioral health. Well, they don't fund any of that. So guess where that comes from? The money tree out back that we all have, right? So we all just got to a money tree and we pull it off and we give it. And look, cities want to, it's a real issue, and especially when you combine it with veterans issues, and there's a higher percentage of veterans and homeless, and so we're trying to do stuff, but to be mandated by the Florida legislature and then told, by the way, we're not giving you any money for that either, and you have to do that. And the other piece to this is if you're a business and somebody is camping in front of your business, and you call the police and they show up and they ticket this guy, and then the person shows up 2 days later and it's the same guy, well, now you can sue the city for not taking care of the property, which is, again, a taxpayer drain that they're not giving us any funds for. So it's like, hey, we're going to solve the problem, but really, you all are going to solve the problem. And look, it is not an easy problem to solve, and we all want to not see that, and we all want to try to work together to come up with a good resolution for it. But it's a hard problem. There are no simple solutions. And so just thought I'd put that on the radar. So you remember the Live Local Act, right? That last year it said that if you have commercial, industrial, or mixed-use space, that they can now build property, they can build residences on it, and that 40% of them had to be set aside for affordable housing, folks that may qualify as 120% of the AMI, which is kind of a county-wide number. So there was a bill filed this year, and it had some really bad stuff. It said basically, most of the people are shaking their head because they're familiar with bad stuff in it. So it said basically, if you had a 70-story building within a mile, even though you may not allow for 70 stories in your city, that if there's a 70-story building within a mile, that somebody could build a 70-story building in your city because it was within a mile, and it would ignore the local height, density, all that kind of restrictions. It did a whole bunch of other things. Zone for you can now put residential buildings in industrial areas. Imagine, if you will, think about what zone industrial, that's welding, tanneries, all kind of crazy things like that. That are pretty hardcore use, scrapyards, that kind of thing. So now you can use that land for building residential. So there's a bill filed this year where we were like, all right, cool. We told them last year, hey, here's some of the problems with what you're doing. And we said, bad idea to do an industrial, it's 1 mile is way too far. And there was a bill filed that said, okay, we're going to take it down to a 1/4 mile, we're not going to allow industrial anymore. And never mind, they're not going to do that. They're going to keep it the way it is. They are going to add some things that for military bases, that it's a 1/4 mile distance from military bases, just because the military folks were like, hey, we have planes coming in. If you got a 70-story building nearby, it's not very cool. It's in the flight path. So they're going to do something for that. But the rest of it's all just being ignored for whatever reason. And so there's just an awful lot going on in Tallahassee that I'll close my comments. There's a whole bunch of other bills. The league, we have a website. I hope you go to the league website. All these bill analyses are there and a lot more. I don't want to scare you too bad all in one night. You won't be able to sleep tonight. So I hope that one of your takeaways is this, is that it is about relationships. And it is this, there are people that are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in the ear of your legislator. And they're telling you which way to vote. And if you're not telling your legislator which way to vote, and if you're not holding them accountable, you give them a free pass to vote whatever way they want. And please, don't give your legislators a free pass. And when I talk about, I'm not saying again, you don't want to blow them up on Facebook, oh, you're a terrible human being. That's not the way to do it. It's about building a relationship, asking them, hey, why did you vote that way? What's the deal? Why aren't you, we've got people here in the community that don't like what you're doing. Explain your vote to them. And sometimes their answer may be, I was told by leadership that I had to vote that way. And when they say that, remind them that leadership didn't elect them to go to Tallahassee. Leadership may have given them some money and helped them get up to Tallahassee, but they're not the one who were pulling flipping the switch in the voting booth or writing their name down in the voting booth. So remind them of that. But do it nicely, do it respectfully, be adults about it. And I'm happy to there's probably a whole bunch of questions. Happy to answer them.
Okay, so before we ask questions, we have little guidelines. So to change this up a little bit, so maybe you come up here and talk in front of everybody asking questions. I'll have a microphone here. And if you'll raise your hand, I'll come to you, and please speak into the microphone clearly. Scott's our only speaker, so who's the one you're asking. And please keep your question to the point and not personal, and minimize background or opinion statements. So, Scott, will let you stay here.
Thank you.
And first question?
Scott, I'm just going to ask you to talk about Local Voices United, because I think that that's something that everybody, when they walk out here tonight, if they sign up for text alerts, then they'll get information and won't have to necessarily do a lot of digging for it, right?
So thank you for that. That's good. That's the wind up, the pitch, and the delivery. The thing I put on your seat with Local Voices United. So the League of Cities, we follow about 500 bills a year. We don't want you to follow 500 bills a year because there's so many just esoteric stuff that it's like government accounting issues, and you don't care about that. What you care about is the stuff that's going to affect you and on your day-to-day lives, in your community, in your neighborhood. And so the Local Voices United program is something that you can join, you can participate in. We have about 3 or 4 bills that we're tracking through that Local Voices United program that are the bills I talked about that are like really going to affect your day-to-day lives. And we make it really easy. We draft letters for you, we tell you which committee it's going to, who's your legislator. I mean, it is one-stop shopping, pressing buttons, making it really easy. And it gives you an opportunity to make your voice heard. And I talked about that it's important that your voice does be heard. Because if they don't hear from you, you give them carte blanche to do whatever they want. And so I hope that you'll get involved in the local. You can shoot QR code, you can text us, whatever. We minimize, we will not inundate you, I promise. We understand that you're all busy and things to do. But there are 3 or 4 bills in here that I think you probably should be paying attention to as members of your community. And I hope that you will. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. Question? So one more question. Is this one? Okay. And I'm sure everyone in the room, the biggest thing they're concerned about is the local app.
And I think the concern is for especially beach communities, because obviously everyone wants to live at the beach, and it's a great way for developers to be able to do things like the apartment buildings that we have been fighting off for years. So I guess I have a twofold question. First of all, is there a subgroup of your cities that are like beach communities that are specifically going to be affected, probably more so? First of all, because I would love for us to be able to communicate with other beach cities. I have no idea how to do that. And then second of all, my question is the word, I just wrote it down. There is a word about where jurisdiction, that's the word. It's such a fuzzy word, so especially us being here in Duval County and the city of Neptune Beach, Jacksonville Beach. Do you have any insight? Is jurisdiction city, a county?
So I'll take the first, thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Yes, the jurisdiction is all those things. You can have city level, you can have, an HOA is a jurisdiction. They have jurisdiction over the things within their HOA. And I'll tell you that in a lot of instances, HOAs have more authorities than cities do now, because the legislature has been stripping authority away from municipalities and from you as citizens, and they always carve out HOAs. They say, except for HOAs, who can have these rules in place. So they recognize that they're important rules to keep in place because they're preserving them for people within HOAs, because they don't want to be on the bad side of those folks. So jurisdiction it is a bit of a fuzzy term, and it depends on, a lot of it overlaps. Sometimes it depends on, there's things called charter counties and non-charter counties, and it depends on whether you guys are a charter county, and you're actually, it's a very unique situation here. And so, yes, jurisdiction is a bit fuzzy, particularly in this area it's fuzzy. But in the rest of the state, county, unincorporated areas, the county's in charge of, if you're not a charter county, then the county is in charge of unincorporated areas, and the cities are in charge of the incorporated areas. That's pretty straightforward. For the first question about a group together, so Vice Mayor Bowling and the mayor here from this city here, and like they all get together. They go to an annual conference of the League of Cities. We do Monday morning conference calls. We do a whole bunch of ways to try to keep all the cities together, in the loop. And a lot of times these groups will create sort of their own coalitions, and we'll help facilitate that. And vacation rentals is one that we've been working with particular cities, a whole bunch of cities on, and they have some areas don't care about it. I have 2 vacation rentals in Citrus County. Citrus County, they don't care about it. They're kind of like, whatever, it's all good. But other areas, they're effective. And so those cities get together at our conference, or they get together at our policy. We have policy committees that we bring together, and they bring their ideas about what do we need to fix this year in the Florida legislature. And so, yes, there are ways for them to all interact, share best practices, and all that kind of thing. I hope that answers your question.
Any other questions?
And I'm going to tell you all right now, if you have a pen handy, my cell phone number is 850-570-7296. I'll repeat it, 850-570-7296. If you think of something later, or you have questions, additional, just that you, I'm happy to answer your call. That's what I'm here to do. We want to be a source for you to help out. So, yes, sir.
Yes, Scott, on that bill, Live Local, did you say that they pulled all the amendments that was to our advantage? They pulled every one of them out, and it's back to the original bill, which is the one that nobody wants? Is that what you said they did?
Pretty much. I will tell you that the one area where I think that they are trying to make some
The one that was the biggest concern was the height.
Yes, and
They pulled that.
The only thing they're doing with respect to that issue is if you're in an area and contiguous is only 3-story buildings, and you can only do 3 stories or 150% of the tallest building nearby. That's the one change they're making, but that's not for every building. That's only if you have a 3, like in your area that you only go up to 3 stories. Then you have to choose whichever is greater, by the way, not whichever is least. They're never going to give you whatever is least, but whatever is greater, either 3 stories or 150% of the tallest building within that line. So that's the only thing that's gotten any kind of traction of the good stuff that they were going to include in the bill. That and the military.
Just one follow-up to that. How many more committees does this have to go through? And is it pretty much headed to the floor?
It is headed to the floor, but it's never too late to weigh in.
Well, certainly.
And if you go to the league website, again, we include all that information about where the bill is, who you need to reach out to, all that kind of stuff. That's what that local voices piece does. Uh-oh.
It's good to see you. I know how to get you to the hospital if you need to go.
Sure do.
My question,
Mayor, you saved my life, actually. You did. I had a heart attack in a meeting here, and he demanded that I go to the hospital. I was like, it's just indigestion. It was not indigestion. I had quadruple bypass. It was not. That was a bad case of indigestion. The care was amazing. So thank you.
my question to you is, knowing you during my term and other mayors have met you, why is the legislature, your opinion, and I guess this has to be your opinion, not the League of Cities, why is the legislature so against home rule? Want to tell each of us how we need to live in our cities, and most sadly about it, all the rules they want to come up with is based on Miami, Fort Lauderdale, South Florida. Why? And then, with that following, you said to get on to our legislators and say, why did you vote this way? And I'll tell you, when I ask one, I say, why did you do it? They say this. Well, that's what the leadership wanted. I want the leadership, and I'll use somebody else's phrase, not mine. I just don't want to go back to the principal's office again. So
a couple of answers there. I'll take the second one first because I remember it. The last one first. So things have changed in the Florida legislature in a couple of different ways. First of all, I admit I voted for term limits. It was the worst vote. Now I see it's the worst vote I ever made because so much of the institutional knowledge leaves, and the lobbyists are the ones controlling things in terms of they're the source of, you don't have the long-term knowledge where somebody says, yeah, we tried that 15 years ago and it didn't work, so we shouldn't do it. Now they go, oh, that's a great idea. We're like, hey, we tried that. And they go, yeah, we're going to do it anyway because people come in. The other thing is that what it did is the parties have started to get involved in primaries. And so they used to stay away from primaries. They used to let the primaries just kind of work themselves out. Now they designate pretty much almost in utero, if you will, who's going to be, they know after a certain legislator is done, they have a pretty good idea of who they're going to be putting in that seat next. It's already kind of mapped out. And so they're grooming somebody for that seat down the path. And so, and then you just get the idea that you get the truth of it is that the speaker probably started a little bit before Speaker Corcoran, but this idea that, so the Florida Constitution requires that in order for a city to become a city, they incorporate, and then the legislature has to bless it. They say, all right, we're going to make it a city. So a lot of the legislators started to get this notion of, well, without us, you wouldn't even exist. So we're like your parents. And that's not what it was. I remind legislators that in order to join the union, you have to get blessed by Congress. And so does that mean that Congress should be dictating everything? They don't like that argument because it makes too much sense. So, but that's really, those are kind of some of the things that happen, the involvement in the primary, so people are scared. And the last thing is, speakers and Senate presidents used to have one or two priorities. Okay, but because of term limits and those other things, now they come in and they, for the 8 years that they've had to be good students, they finally get to pull out their book of plays and say, well, this is what we're running for the next 2 years. And so many of the decisions are driven by leadership now. It used to be just a couple of issues that were driven by, you were free to do whatever you wanted to, except for on these one or two issues. Now the book is about 8 or 10 or 15 things that you have to do because the Senate president has waited 6.5 years to get there. The House speakers waited 6 years to get there. And so when they get there, they're like, this is what I'm getting done during my term. And you're going to vote that way? Or I'm going to have somebody, I'm going to primary you. I'm going to, all those things that I talk about. So that's sort of the cumulative effect. You get to kind of way inside baseball, but you asked the question, so.
Hi, Scott. We're glad you made it.
Thank you, I'm glad I made it too.
Thanks, Mayor, for saving us money. I'm going to follow up on Scott's question. If you could take an example and give us your best read on it. So Neptune and Atlantic Beach jammed together, two separate jurisdictions, one ocean, probably 14 stories tall. We have height limits in their charter. Does charter trump legislation? With this bill, what could we possibly expect in terms of building within a mile of one ocean?
Charters do not trump legislation. Legislation trumps charters. The only thing legislation can't do is you can't, like if you have a contract with somebody to do something, they can't change the law and suddenly make that contract null and void. They could give a glide path where they say as soon as that contract's done, then you can't do, then you have to follow the legislative rules. But you can't undo a contract by the legislature. It's not allowed. But basically, legislation dictates that. So it's your charters becomes kind of worth the paper it's written on when the legislature starts to weigh in on stuff.
So what would we see?
When you say, you can see, like with the Live Local Act, like I said, I mean, they're basically going to keep it largely the way it is now. And so whatever you were dealing with before with that is what you're stuck with now. They were going to make some changes, and I don't know. So.
Oh, hold on. Wait. Right. That's the Live Local Act, yes. And so somebody could, if they're going to build, so somebody could build something that's also 14 story, because that's what's there. But let me just tell you, so there's a little, it's bad, and this is what I talked to Mayor Reeves before last year when he ambushed me with the question. I'm joking. When he hit me up with the question, is that, so the math has to work on these. So a developer's not going to build a building that they're going to lose a bunch of money on. Okay? So if you have to designate 40% of the units to affordable housing, and it's 120% of the AMI, the average median income in the area, somebody's got to do the pen, they get to take out the pen and paper or the abacus or whatever they're using, and it has to make sense for them to be able to do the project. So while potentially somebody could do that, it's got to make sense from the standpoint of the builder has to be able to, they're not going to build it take a loss. So unless they can prove that they're going to make some money on the project, probably not going to do it. And so there's some cities, some areas that are jurisdictions, if you will, that are better suited to withstand this assault because the AMI is so high, average median income is so high, and because the beachfront property is really, really expensive, so it's going to be really hard to still get the math to work to set aside 40% of units for affordable housing or for workforce housing and still make the numbers work. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, but is that what we're talking about with the hotel?
Yes, that was the gist of the question.
The height limit?
Yes, ma'am. The height limits that your city has are not really relevant anymore with respect to that if under the Live Local Act is that they can build a residential place that if something's within a mile of that, then they want to use either a commercial, mixed use, or industrial area to build a residential unit that has 40% of the units set aside for affordable housing, and they can do that.
But can't they build another hotel?
No, it has to be, it can't be a hotel, not a hotel. It has to be residential units of where people live, not a hotel. It has to be where they live regularly. I hope that helps.
At one point, I heard from our city attorney that it was 1 mile within your jurisdiction. Is that incorrect?
No, that is.
It is correct.
Yeah.
So for Neptune Beach, that's only, 2.2 square miles, and we don't have any buildings that are taller than 35 feet or protected.
So you would be, yeah, so it would be, let's call that 3 stories more or less. So it would be the 3 stories or 150% of something within the mile of that. So they would be driving not just within the jurisdiction, but within that area. So,
But it's within the jurisdiction, so
Yes.
okay. So just to clarify again, because I hear this a lot, people are very, very worried in Neptune Beach
right.
that we're gonna get, a residential building that's as tall as one ocean, which is in Atlantic Beach. Or that we're gonna get something as big as, the nearest condo building in Jack's Beach. That's not gonna happen under the local act for us, correct?
That is my, yes.
Awesome.
that is my-
Thank you.
Yes.
If I may, I'd like to follow on
Yes.
that. So if I heard correctly, and let's use Neptune Beach as an example, if 35 feet is their maximum height, a developer could come in and do 150% of that.
Yes.
So
It could
essentially,
be
we
bigger,
could say a
yes.
4-story building instead of a 3-story
Correct.
building,
Correct.
if they met the requirements of the 40% with the
Exactly.
residents,
Did all the
also
other stuff.
120%.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you. Thanks, that was a clear answer. I appreciate that.
I'll just make it real quick. People need to read these bills very, 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 very closely. The beaches, if I'm correct, says is known as urban district. Urban services. The law says the county or city. So, I hear people say this, well, Jack's Beach and Neptune Beach, or let's just use Neptune Beach. Neptune Beach, one ocean is in Atlantic Beach, so it doesn't affect us. You better look close. Are we really a city or are we an urban district? Because the county, when they joined, they call us a urban service district.
Service area, yeah.
So be careful with the words.
Right. And so an urban service area is an area typically within a jurisdiction. It's typically within a municipality as an urban service area. When you have cities like Fort Lauderdale, where they all just blend together, the distinction's a little bit different, because your urban service area is it's a megalopolis, essentially. So it's a little bit, they define it a little bit differently.
Okay, we are at the bewitching hour, 8 o'clock, so Scott, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Please take the resolutions in your chair, please sign up, please stay informed, and please take action.
And I will send Mayor, Vice Mayor Boland information about the local, so you all can read it yourself, read the staff analysis, see what's done, and I'll send it here if you send it out. I'll do that tomorrow.
Next month, March 6th, is our big celebration at Beach Diner. Please go online tonight, buy your tickets, or buy your sponsorship. Either one, we'd love to see you next month. It's going to be a great time. Look at our video tomorrow on our website. And if you're able, if you can help us stack the chairs and have our cleanup go smoother and faster. Thank you so much.